Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where was she when they sold Carter Park? Where was the Campbell when they sold Carter Park to Northeastern? There's two parks in Roxbury, Ramsey Field and Carter Park on Columbus Ave. Where were they when they sold a city park to a private industry, to a private college? She wasn't around. Wasn't around. Excuse me?
Northeastern helped bring in $112 million to rehab that park. That's why Northeastern has control.
The people that grew up with me can't live in the same neighborhood because Northeastern has bought the whole neighborhood and turned into condos. That's where their money's coming from. And the governor and the mayor is pocketing some of that money. You don't sell a park that's been supported by state, city, and taxpayers' money for over 30 years. You sell it to a private school, and you don't give nothing back to the taxpayers' money. You and I can't walk on that street no more. And I've been there since 1960-something. Everything goes to the south end. It's nothing against the south end, but 2011, I couldn't sit in Blackstone Park because I was drowned. And I keep telling people, look at these politicians. Look at the difference. They clean up. They're better service. South End. What's up with Roxbury? We're nobodies to these people. They're letting us just go out there and kill each other. Gangs, drugs, and more. And the city putting up more shit around our neighborhoods. Like, we need more trouble.
You guys, can we just, because I'm going to be honest, that Roxbury, Dorchester, and all that, and the South and getting everything. The South end ain't getting much more than what you guys are getting. It might be.
No.
Hold on, let me finish my saying. You ain't even let me finish, Mingos. Let me finish. The South end is being used as far as what they're saying they're giving. In the end, I feel like my neighborhood looks not as bad. No, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take some of that back. I'll take some of that back. But I feel. Huh? What you say?
130 grants came out of City Hall.
But who did they come? Who did they go to though? Can we say who they went to? Because they went to them high businesses that has nothing to really do with the South. They just utilizing our neighborhood. But when it comes to the residents in the community, they're not getting none of that. It's the residents I'm talking about.
Marty Walsh came out his mouth and says out of 130 grants that came out of City Hall for the pandemic, 88 of them went to businesses in the South End, small businesses in the South. But it's the area. The area flourishes because of the businesses. The community has public housing that needs to be renovated from thousands of years ago. Cathedral hasn't been touched in years.
Absolutely.
Okay? So I hear what you're saying. It's like they want to pin one community versus the other. This is why, this group was able to come together so fast because they couldn't do that. They couldn't have us separate each other on a conversation that affects all of us. This has nothing to do with the South End, Roxbury, Dorchester, South Boston. It has to do with Boston as a city. I'm in Hyde Park and I got overdoses.
And I think that's what I'm really saying. I think that's exactly what I'm saying. Is that as a community itself, it is a full force. And I think that, and this is why, and I'm talking about the residents, like I said. It's a residence. It's us. It's all of us. It's not just one. And them grants that are coming out of wherever and going to these businesses, I'm all for going at it with them. And given that if they're going to flourish the businesses in Roxbury and Dorchester, let's do that. But I'm talking about the residents. Because I think they forget about it. I think they forget about Roxbury's residents. They forget about Dorchester's residents. They forget about the South End residents. Because predominantly there is elderly down here that are suffering from that.
And you're right, Janina, because remember when we first started this, Marla, Mingos, where we met with Bear, their program, and they are from Bridgewater or something like that, Bridgewater, Brockton, and they have said that they just the project that they're doing, they've been having a hard time soliciting funding to start their program in their community, which is the Bridgewater area, because they've been told straight up that majority of that funding is going to Boston and the services around substance use and mental health in Boston. Which then is like, if we're going to have a conversation, if we're saying that we want to decentralize the services, but we're only funding the programs in Boston and not funding those that have services or trying to create something outside of Boston to remedy the situation in their community, why are they not getting funding?
And I'm glad you said that, right? I got tagged on the Merrimack River. Man, I thought we had a problem with needles. That river is saturated with needles. That they got to bring in excavators to clean it up because they're pulling out thousands of needles from the river, from the banks of the river, and that's not being put out there on the media front. So, a suggestion to the group: maybe we need to go to Merrimack and Lowell and speak to the people in Haverhill and see if we can get them to join the conversation so we can push this to the state level. Since we were told that all licenses for treatment centers come out of the governor's office, and they're the ones that allow these licenses. But then at the same time, when you got a public health crisis like we do, and then you get listen, I mean thousands of needles. It was nothing to what we've seen in Boston. This was like a cemetery of needles. So again, here in Boston, we have to get more. Again, the folks who fail to come to the table with us. If they don't want to come to the table with us, we're going to have to force their hands. Those other 5 city councilors that refuse to come to the table, why? Why do they refuse to come to the table and have a simple conversation on where they stand on this issue? We can't fix any city ordinance. We can't add any home rule petitions. We can't make any moves without 7 out of the 13 councilors to agree to anything that would impact that area or the city as a whole without having 7 individuals agree to move forward on one subject. And right now, I don't think any of them want to really tackle this conversation. It's great that Andrea Campbell has come out with us a few times. She's kind of put out a plan that kind of mirrors what's already been played out. Marty Martinez's job is to deal with methadone mild. Michael Strahan, starting lieutenant, super lieutenant, his job is to deal with the police in that area specifically. And I can go back from the first time me and him talked about this situation, and that was what he was responsible for. And he was also trying to make sure that he kept the bike unit in his unit so he could have it, travel Clifford Park, Disney Park, Stone Park, of them riding around in circles. And then we're from the defund police made enough noise that they automatically just stopped. They just stopped doing bicycle units. And we see the bicycle units in other areas of the city. That unit should be specifically housed out of Mass and Cass. Flowing unit. Don't need officers parked there doing nothing, watching the Bruins game. We need to the numbers of arrests when the arrests that not tell us, oh, the numbers went down. Of course the numbers of arrests went down because you guys ain't doing nothing.
Because we found out they ain't doing what? They're not doing the arrests because they
what's the solution?
They're not doing arrests.
No, Janina, you want to know what it is? Okay, because the DA has a policy where a lot of these offenses, like doing drugs, they want to decriminalize it, right? So if these people get arrested and go to court, the court will be able to give them, what's that called? Diversion, right? But the cops don't want that. They only want to be able to arrest people and put them in jail. They don't care if they get help. They don't care if the homeless get housed or if addicts get beds, they don't care about that. And then the state doesn't help provide these services because they don't want to give the courts avenues to send these people for diversions. The cops only want to see people go to jail, and that's what the city wants. They don't really care. They need to have treatment centers outside, and like Domingo said, the licenses for that come out of the state house. They come from the governor. He doesn't care. He doesn't. And the other thing that's added to this is gentrification. The reason that, like you said, it's affecting the residents, they want to push all the residents out. As a matter of fact, I think that they didn't fix Cathedral because BAG is thinking of selling it off. I live in Boston Housing. I'm afraid they're going to start selling off all of our housing.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're selling all the housing, all the public housing, all the state housing to private people because they can't handle it. They don't have the funds. They don't know how to manage it. And then when it comes to the private housing people, in my circumstance, they sold it to a nonprofit, so it's going to stay subsidized for the most part. Though, when they sell those housing projects to a private owner, they're going to make them into market property, especially in the South End, because that's what makes them money, and that's what Marty has done all these years.
It goes back to, again, I learned as a city employee, the constant neglect. You have a resident who says, hey, my window is broken. Can you send someone to fix it? They come out, they put a piece of plywood. That window stays broken for months, years. And then it gets the second window, the third window, the fifth, third door, the fifth, the air system. So now it's gotten so bad that it costs 3 times more to fix it, that it's cheaper to say, hey, you know what? Give us $1, year lease, and you got to make sure that you deal with HUD. You deal with HUD. Us. That's what we did with childcare. BCYF used to provide childcare at 23 sites. And when EEC came out and said that you have to have a associate's or a bachelor's in early child care or early child education, the staff who only had certificates had X amount of days to be able to go get those degrees, which you can't get overnight. And then the city didn't want to deal with EEC no more because it was too much paperwork. People downtown didn't want to deal with it. The city had its own. Every piece of material that came out of City Hall that was on a city letterhead came out of a printing department. And even Frank Baker talks about how he used to work for the printing department. Once they got rid of the printing department, they subbed it out. Doing with a lot of our services, subbing it out. Like the needle exchange program, subbed out the AHO. Boston Water and Sewer does not belong to the city. Entity that carries the name Boston Water and Sewer, just like the Boston Health Commission. It's the bill, but it's not a city agency. The city just governs a piece of how it operates. They're leasing out these buildings to these different people. Then in back of it, we don't know about it because they don't invite us to these meetings. The bike lanes that we have by Boston Medical. We have no parking for. Have y'all noticed that? That they got rid of all the parking on Mass Ave from Boston Medical Center?
Oh, yeah.
No longer park?
Yep.
Dara, there's a question on the live I would like to read to you guys about the task force. It's from Diana. She said, isn't a task force a temporary thing? Where's the counselor? And then another question, the questions. And then it sent it. What do you guys think about it?
As far as task force typically are designed to execute a task, right? I mean, I'm not a specialist on this stuff, but I'm just using my analytical brain, right? I thought the task force are designed to, again, to execute a task. However long that takes, I don't know. But the reality was that the task force, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, the task force itself was designed in 2019. We are now in 2021. This issue has been going on for over 30 years. So the fact that we decided to do a task force in 2019, after we're already 30 years into the situation, one, I don't know. And then two, the fact that those meetings are not live streamed, those meetings are not, posted on the face, on the city of Boston site for us to join. Problematic.
Can you guys mute yourself? If you're not going to speak, please mute yourself because we have a lot of conversations in the background.
So I don't know. Like, the question is a very legitimate question. What, if it's a temporary task force, I don't know about you guys, but I've gone on the website and I'm honestly still trying to figure out what the role of the task force is to do. I don't know what the objective of that task force is. It just gives a very general. It just gives a very general description. It doesn't say, we're going to work on building partnerships throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts so that we can build with other community members to make sure that their residents may go back into their communities and have access. There's none of that. I can't find the objective of the task force.
And also, Diana also said that we might, we actually act like she said, y'all doing like Tyler Perry said, they don't create a seat at the table. We build our own table.
This is a situation where it's not one of those situations where you can just create a new table. Because the people in power are the ones that control the outcome. They're the ones that, advocate along with what we're doing to have the proper funding put in the places that are needed. This goes back to folks being in position to neglect to do responsibilities. There's no reason why that this issue just seems to keep growing. Like I said, we had a family in Ashmont, their homes. Families were burnt out this weekend. They're all on mass and cast looking for services. The city has given Pine Street the magic wand when it comes to homelessness and those services that come along with that. These folks said, I'm all set. I am not going to Mass Ave with my children to have them witness what we see on a day-to-day basis. So this is a big issue that we're facing.
And it's unfortunate that they have to go, Mingos. Why do they have to go to the same spot where people that need different services? Do you know what I mean? Why are they having to? Why are they going to that? They should be able to go someplace that is not traumatized.
Well, this is why we're asking for it to be decentralized. To have things spread out. The sad thing is they live in Ashmont and no one from any city agency has reached out to them. They're really struggling. This is why I reached out to you guys this morning. These individuals are pretty much out in the street. The Red Cross the Red Cross. Hey, Will, you gotta mute your phone, Will. The Red Cross only gave them X amount of days in a hotel, so they're pretty much out in the streets. So myself and Jeff has been conversating with one of the families to make sure that at least we can get them the basic things that they need. And right now we're trying to help them push that GoFundMe account because they don't have any money to stay anywhere. They have children, and a family member was able to let them, hang out for a couple of nights. But what are they going to do a week from today? What are they going to do a month from today? Are they going to be down there on Mass and Cass and then go down that slippery slope of depression, and then wind up being there for more than just a place to stay. This is what a lot of people tell us when we talk to them on Mass and Cash. Oh yeah, I came down here, my house or something happened, and I needed a place to stay, and I've been here for 3 years. I've been here for 4 years. Now I'm strung out. I'm strung out on different drugs. So it's not going to be the cookie cutter solution. It's not going to be the normal conversation to get the solutions. Long Island isn't the solution. Long Island isn't the solution. The solution is housing. The solution is equitable resources. The solution is bigger than Long Island. But Long Island seems to be the Band-Aid for these individuals. The money that we would spend on repairing the bridge would allow the city individuals actual long-term housing. That's what these people need. This is what we need as a city. We need housing, affordable housing. Stop selling off the projects. Okay? The housing developments that Boston had, we're like one of the first cities. Lenox, for people that don't know, Lenox is one of the first housing developments in the country. It's a private-owned city, no longer manages it. So as long as we continue to allow the city to sell off public housing, instead of putting the money back into the public housing and bringing it back to where it needs to be, we're going to keep having these conversations of people just being displaced. We're going to continue to have these conversations until we fix that. So the solution, again, for me, as an individual who became politically involved, is trying to vote these sons of bitches out. Trying to let them know you don't have to have $400 million in your bank account as a politician. Marty Walsh had $6 million in his campaign. $75,000 was charged to a union in New Hampshire because they were illegally donating things. Charlie Baker's and Marty Walsh's campaign. That was put out in an article in September. Oh, we're upset. No, we're sharing information, like Janina said, facts, the truth of what's going on. If we continue to allow them to play us against each other, one community versus the other, if you don't own property in Boston, you will not be in Boston. They're going to tax you out. The tax is going to be so high that if you own a little, more than your mortgage, you're out of there, because it's easier to replace us than it is to work with us. And that's the goal that I see in a lot of these individuals who come and sell us these fluff. They come, they tell us these great stories of what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and then they go back and they continue to do the same thing. Where's Michael Flaherty in all this? He said to us that he would never send anybody in personal circle asking cash for any services. You're a city councilor. How would you say that to your constituents? How can you tell that to a family that just lost their home and the only place that they can go is Mass and Cash? We continue to allow Michael Flaherty to sit in the seat comfortably while his family makes $500,000 plus a year. His kids all go to private school. None of his kids go to Boston Public. He's a BC High alumni, a Boston College alumni. His kids are not going to the Mather. His kids are not going to the Jackson Inn. His kids are not going to the Blackstone, the Mason, the Orchard Gardens, the Dearborn. Continue to allow that. And on gentrification, Michelle Wu is a gentrifier. Moved to Boston after college. After going to Harvard, she decided to stay. And now she's complaining about other people coming in and gentrifying the same neighborhood that she gentrified. Boston is a melting pot. So for you to talk about gentrification, let's talk about the $8 that I'm worth as a black man. Let's don't talk about somebody moving in next door. Let's talk about the fact that me as a black man, I can't get the job on a union site, even though it says 51% Bostonians, 25% minorities, 15% women. Those are the conversations that we really need to talk about to address Mass and Cash. So folks don't lose their jobs. So folks continue to thrive in schools. So again, for me, I'm talking about for Domingo, the real conversation starts when we collect signatures. Let John Santiago come and ask me for a signature. You know what I'm going to tell him? Fly a kite in a hurricane, in the blizzard, in the thunderstorm. another way to get a signature because this man ain't giving you. I haven't seen anything you've done. Same with anyone else who's sitting on one of them seats who are gonna ask you. They're gonna ask you in April. They will ask you, "Hey, would you like to sign my signature sheet so I can get on the ballot as a candidate?" They don't just. You can't just say I'm running for mayor. You got to collect 5,000 plus signatures certified. 3,000 plus signatures must be certified for you to get on the ballot. 1,500 has to be certified for at large. 250 for a district councilor. So let's go back to the conversation. The solution is, how do we get them out of office so we can put people in place that will have this conversation with them, that will take the nitty gritty and run back and take care of what they need to take care of instead of hiding behind it's not my district. Step on anybody's toes. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that because it's not my district. So please, don't be naive to some of the conversations that they've been giving us. Just be mindful and thankful that you're not on Mass and Cast as of yet. So when you do wind up on Mass and Cast, just know that we did the best we can to fix it. So if we do wind up on Mass and Cast, at least we can say we did the best we can to help not only myself, but the people around us. I'm going to leave it at that because I'm starting to get a little sweaty.
I have a question, though. So we got a lot of people that threw their hat in a bag, right? How many of those individuals have any of you guys seen ever in their work and advocacy or whatever it is that they do, has there been any work on substance use and any advocacy around mass and cast, methadone mild from any of the individuals that are running? Because as long as I've seen this issue on methadone mild, I've always seen Domingos, I've always seen Leon, I've heard Janina, Susie, Marla, this core group of people that were already working before I came into this space. I haven't seen any of these candidates, any platform that they've had on substance use. Do you guys know? I mean, have you guys met any of these candidates? I hear crickets. Guys, hello.
I can say, truthfully,
I say cricket.
One of the only one that I can say that actually have said something on it is Anissa Stabby George. She's spoken on it a few times. Frank Baker has been, active for different reasons. But to say, the other 12 or 11 sitting counselors, depending on where they're at, and that's what I learned about, when I was sitting on stage with a clown sitting next to me, and I thought I was in the wrong spot, but there was a clown sitting next to me, so I guess I was in the right spot. The conversation is around the communities that we go to. So, in West Roxbury, they're more concerned about the bike lane because now you can't park as comfortable as you used to. Or, down in Mattapan, people are more concerned about, the bullets flying by their ears. And in Charlestown, they're more concerned about the parking, and there's no parking. And then every bits and pieces of the city, like noise pollution. Chinatown is like very upset at the fact that they have all that noise in that area of the city and all the lights, as you guys seen on the news. The big issue now is the theater district got too many lights. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, there was a lot of working girls.
Mm-hmm. Way more red lights.
And I understand their complaint. It shouldn't be on all day. They should be. It should turn off, at 1 a.m. All those lights. There should be something set so it's not just a constant. But every community has different concerns, and because of the area that we're in the area that we're speaking about, it's a heavy industrial commercial area. So this is why the New Market Square has so much down in that area, because they consider Albany Street all the way down to the factory, the flower part of New Market Square. This is why they have a big seat at that table. How they always referring back to Sue and her organization that she leads, because it's a commercial area. You don't really have any residents. Once you pass Shirley Street, Marla. You got Marla, because there's not really too many housing in that area till you get to the south end portion of the city. And then you got Orchard
Gardens. That's why we don't have a neighborhood.
You know, they don't really communicate. They got the principle. Say that again, Marla?
That's why we don't manage to really have a neighborhood association, because our neighborhood is largely commercial people. So they have their own, you know, the Newmarket Business District, but they don't include residents in the Newmarket, you know, business district area. They include us when they want to do something like this business innovation district that they want to create, but they don't include the residents in any sort of neighborhood association. So, like, there's my street and the people across the street from me, and unless we join, like, Dudley Street neighborhood, which is fine. I mean, I like those people, but they're not really my neighborhood. They're a few blocks up, or, you know, we go the other direction. Our neighborhood doesn't really have a neighborhood association, and that's why they put whatever in the world they want here, because there's nobody objecting to it.
And ultimately, Marla, Will, Mingos, everyone that's old enough to know, Boston politics is Boston politics. It's what it is. We can change it, right? But it is what it is. Boston politics has always been ran by certain people, right? We know who those people are, what color they are, who they are, men, who they are. Mm-hmm. So, can we change this by advocating? But we always have known that they have always ruled the police departments, the fire departments, the state, you know, everything is ran by different people. And we have to be able to know that and know that it's a hard feat. Like, we can't just overnight do it.
Mm-hmm. But we also have to be mindful with this election coming up, with Marty heading to D.C., and that causing this big, enormous shakeup. And now everybody and their mother is throwing their hat in the ring. And it's fantastic to see so much diversity there. But all it's going to take is for one old white dude to run, and he's going to win. Because these people want to vote for a woman, and these people want to vote for a black person, these people want to vote for a brown person, these people want to vote for the Asian lady. And all those are great. You should be able to vote for whoever you want. But we have to be really mindful of splitting the vote so badly that some old white guy wins that none of us wanted.
Right.
So we kind of have to figure out who we're going to support. I mean, not just us, as a whole community, and really throw support behind that person or maybe two people till we get to the final election, and then figure out what's what. Because, you know, somebody like Frank Baker, I've never even heard a rumbling that he wants to run. But if he were to decide tomorrow he wanted to run, he's a very popular white guy. He'd win South Dorchester and West Roxbury without even trying, and then he'd walk away with the election. And I'm just using him as an example. I have no idea whether he wants to be mayor or not. But we have to be very careful, if we're all enthusiastic about this other group of people that are running, how we narrow down who we're going to support, so that somebody who hears our voice is going to be in City Hall.
Yes, Marla, you know, and you, because of history, you know this for a fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
we've had 5 mayors in my whole life.
Right,